Hi guys, and welcome to All About the Philippines. Now when you go to the Philippines, it can be a little bit confusing around whether you should tip, not to tip, or how much to tip, depending on where you come from. I know where I come from in Australia, we don't tip here in Australia. Generally there's no tipping. People get decent wages, and there's no really such thing when you go to, when you get a taxi ride, definitely don't tip. When you go to a restaurant, some people may tip, but it's not expected that you do tip. Now, it's different when you go to the Philippines. You're left wondering, especially if you're a new traveller to the Philippines, do I tip or don't I tip? And really, it comes down to yourself and what you feel you want to do. I think when you're a new traveller, you seem to think there's an expectation that you should tip, but what I'm going to suggest is when you go to a restaurant, for example, you check your docket, and some dockets will tell you that there's already been a tip fee included, and if that's already been included, then of course you don't need to worry about that. Where that doesn't exist, then it comes down to what you want to do. Now, me personally, I do like to leave a little bit of a tip. I understand that in the Philippines they're not on the greatest wages in the world, and even a small tip by me is going to help them a lot. So, and they work hard for their money, and if I get good service, then I'm likely to leave a tip. Now, how much do I leave? Well, it depends, I guess. Usually I think around about the 10% mark is a good tip to leave them. 10, maybe 20% if you're feeling very generous. Yeah, it just depends on how happy you were with the food, how happy you were with the service. But that's just me. Other people may not like the tip at all, and that's fine. Other people might give bigger tips, and that's fine too. So it really comes down to what you want to do. Now, also when you get in a taxi, for example, you might feel like you'd like to leave a tip, and that's the same rule again. If you want to leave them around about a 20% tip, I think that's a fair indication if you've had a good service and they haven't tried to scam you or anything like that, and they've got you safely from point A to point B, then I would suggest around about a 20% tip is good. Now, when those taxi drivers, geez, they work hard. I wouldn't like to be out in those roads, in that traffic, hours on end. So I really appreciate the taxi drivers over there. And there is many honest ones over there. So we hear about the scams and all that sort of stuff, but there's many good, honest, hard-working taxi people out there, so I don't begrudge giving them a tip, that's for sure. When you go to a hotel, for example, you might have somebody carry your bags up to your room. I'm happy to give them, a small tip for that, maybe 20 pesos, 40 pesos, and say thank you very much, I appreciate the service, your friendliness, that sort of thing. That's somewhere where when you first get to the Philippines, is one of the first things you encounter after the taxi, of course, is people coming, getting your bags from the car and taking up, and you're sort of sometimes wondering, oh, what do I do? Do I give them a tip, or scrounge around, do I have any money? And that sort of thing. So always have some smaller change or notes. So if you want to give tips, you've always got that on hand. And tricycle drivers as well. So, they're out there working hard. It's a very competitive business, that tricycle driving. They don't make a lot of money. So I'm always happy to give a small tip there. To a tricycle driver. If he says that's 40 pesos, I'm likely to give him 50 pesos just to help him a little bit and show that I've appreciated. He's got me from point A to point B safely. I did, going back to taxi drivers, I did on one occasion give a taxi driver 1,000 peso tip. Now, or it wasn't, no, I gave him the ride was, I think, 250 pesos. I gave him 1,000 peso note and told him to keep the change. Now, the only reason for that was, and by the way, he was very excited about it. He was shaking my hand, wishing God bless you and all this sort of stuff, because he had a family at home. But that was the only time I've ever done that to that amount of money, because the next morning we were actually flying out of the Philippines coming back to Australia. So I had a few notes there. I didn't want to bring them all home, and I thought, well, this guy, we can make someone's day. So maybe he went home after that and could spend some time with his kids, So yeah, and it made me feel good. I've got to say, it did make me feel good to see his excitement about getting a good tip. But as I say, that's an exception to the rule. Very rarely do I do that. So yeah, in short, I recommend you do what you feel comfortable doing. If you don't want to give tips, then I don't think there's any hard and fast rule that you have to give tips in the Philippines. It's just a nice thing to do, and it makes you feel good, and it helps the local people over there to get a little bit of extra money to feed their families and get on with life. So that's my advice around it. I'd like to hear what your comments are, so put them in below, what you believe you should do when you're in the Philippines, or what you actually do in the Philippines around tips. And of course, share the video around to those that might help if they're going to the Philippines, and hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell for more videos. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Take care. Bye for now.